All right, let's dive into an idea that is genuinely going to bend your brain a little. You know that incredible, almost spooky unity we see in animal colonies? Well, what if it's not what it appears to be at all? What if it's actually a glimpse into a whole other dimension of reality? I mean, really think about it for a second. A flock of starlings that twists and turns as if it's one single creature. An ant colony that works like a perfectly designed city. For centuries, this has just stumped scientists. How does it happen? The coordination is so perfect it seems to defy any normal kind of communication we know of. And here's the thing. Our standard three-dimensional explanations, well, they're starting to show some pretty serious cracks. When you look closely, they just don't fully add up.
Now, what's so interesting here is the contrast. The textbook explanation says it's all about local signals, right? One ant bumps into another, or one bird just sees its neighbor turn. But the data shows something completely different. We're seeing instantaneous group-wide coordination. There's literally no time for a signal to travel from one side of the group to the other. So what is really going on?
And this isn't just a practical puzzle. It's a really deep philosophical one. It's called the combination problem. How in the world do you add up thousands of tiny individual consciousnesses and somehow get one big, coherent superconsciousness? The math just doesn't work. It feels like we've been missing some kind of huge organizing principle. Well, a new scientific framework is proposing a totally radical answer. It suggests that maybe we've been looking in the wrong dimension this whole time. Let's see how this builds a completely new picture of reality. Just imagine for a second. What if our entire 3D world, everything we see and touch, is just a shadow? A shadow that's being cast by a much richer, four-dimensional reality. It's kind of like Plato's cave, but, for all of physics. What would that mean for the superorganism? This projection-first idea basically flips everything on its head. In this view, the 4D world is the real deal. That's the fundamental reality. Our 3D world and even time itself are just projections. They're like simplified versions of that much deeper structure. And look, this isn't just some vague philosophical concept. It's a formal scientific model, and it's called the TCGS-SEQUENTION framework. It's a really bold, projection-based model that's trying to rewrite the rulebook for both biology and physics by just looking at reality in a completely different way.
So how does all this help us with our ant colony? Okay, this is where it gets really elegant.
The big takeaway is this. There is no combination problem. It was the wrong question all along. The ants aren't combining their minds at all. The entire colony and all the individual ants are just co-projections. Think of them as different shadows cast by the exact same single object that exists in the fourth dimension. Their unity was there from the very beginning. And this just shows how the framework dissolves these old puzzles. That so-called colony mind, that's just an effect of their identity of source. They all come from one 4D object. And the difference between a queen and a worker, that's just differential projection. They're different types of shadows from that same source. And get this, we can actually see this in their biology. Real-world studies have shown that queen ant brains are generalized. They contain all the potential of the colony. Worker brains, on the other hand, are highly specialized for specific jobs. So in this framework, the queen is a projection of the full 4D object, while a worker is a more constrained, task-specific projection. It makes perfect sense. Okay, I hear you. This is all very cool, but where's the hard proof, right? Well, this framework argues that the definitive evidence, the real smoking gun, has been flying right over our heads this whole time. And that smoking gun is a phenomenon called scale-free correlation. And it is something that our current 3D physics just has no explanation for. So here's what's so wild about it. The movement of a bird on one edge of a massive flock is instantly connected to a bird on the far edge. That signal, that correlation, it doesn't get weaker with distance. It's as if the entire flock, no matter how huge it gets, is one single entity. This is textbook non-local behavior. So the mind-blowing conclusion here is that they aren't signaling each other at all. At least, not in our 3D space. The 4D explanation is that every single bird in that flock is directly connected to the same underlying 4D source. They're moving together because, in that deeper reality, they are all part of the same thing. And the mathematical mechanism for this is called the K-kernel. Think of it like a rule that exists in the fourth dimension. It's not a signal traveling through our world, it's more like a puppeteer's strings, right? The kernel doesn't connect puppet A to puppet B, it connects both puppets directly back to the puppeteer. They're one common source.
Now, I know what you're thinking. This sounds like it's straight out of science fiction. But here's the most exciting part. This theory isn't just a philosophical idea. It makes real, concrete predictions that we can actually go out and test in a lab. For example, the theory predicts that if you took two ant colonies from the same source and completely isolated them, they'd still be linked in 4D. A major event in one colony should trigger a response in the other, with no signal passing between them. That's a testable, falsifiable prediction. Same with the birds. It predicts a flock's information speed should change if it flies through an area with altered 4D geometry, like near strong gravitational lensing.
And what's so exciting is that this isn't some hidden secret. This whole idea comes from a scientific preprint, which means it's out there right now, being debated and explored and tested by the entire scientific community. It's science happening in real time, right in front of us. So, all of this leaves us with a truly massive question. If something as complex as a superorganism is really just a shadow of some higher dimensional object, what does that say about other complex systems? What else in our universe is being guided by a reality that we can't even see?